At 40 people seated around elegant tables, my grandmother's voice cut through the anniversary dinner like a knife through silk. Her hearing problems meant she spoke louder than everyone else, and her words carried across the entire restaurant. "Rebecca, how do you like living in the house I bought you?" I nearly choked on my wine. What house? I was living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment with a kitchen so small you couldn't open the refrigerator and cabinet doors at the same time. But as I watched my parents' faces drain of all color, their forks clattering to their plates, I realized something terrible was about to unfold. This is the story of how one dinner question exposed 30 years of lies, favoritism, and betrayal that ran so deep it made me question everything I thought I knew about family. It's about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you most decide your dreams are worth less than someone else's comfort. My name is Rebecca, and I need to tell you how I got here, because the betrayal didn't start that night. It had been building for decades, hidden behind family dinners and birthday cards, masked by the kind of casual cruelty that families excel at when they think no one's watching. Let me take you back to where it all began. When I turned 18, my parents Carol and Ben called me into our living room for what they termed their independence speech. The message was brutally clear: I was an adult now, and it was time to make my own way in the world. No help with college, no money for textbooks, no safety net. Just a firm push out of the nest and a pat on the back. "You're smart, Rebecca," my father said, his voice carrying that tone of finality I'd learned to recognize over the years. "You'll figure it out." I remember sitting there, trying to process what they were telling me. Other kids I knew were getting college funds, care packages, parents who worried about their meal plans and dorm room furniture. I was getting a handshake and a good luck. Meanwhile, my sister Jessica, 4 years younger, was living in a completely different universe. My parents had been saving for her college education since she was born. New clothes appeared in her closet regularly, not just any clothes, but the kind of designer pieces that made her friends envious. The latest iPhone whenever a new model came out, designer bags that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, whatever caught her eye. The favoritism was so blatant it hurt to witness. But I'd learned early that pointing it out only made things worse, so I swallowed that pain and kept moving forward. That's what I did, I kept moving forward. College was a special kind of hell. I shared a terrible apartment with 2 other girls, Hannah and Jane, in a building that should have been condemned years ago. The place was falling apart in ways that would have been funny if we weren't actually living there. Cockroaches scurried across the kitchen counters at night like they owned the place. The heating system broke every single winter, and our landlord treated fixing anything like a personal favor we didn't deserve. I worked at a grocery store, scanning items and bagging groceries while other students went to parties and worried about normal college problems like which fraternity to join or whether they'd make it to their 10 a.m. class. Some nights, I'd eat instant ramen and crackers for dinner 3 days straight because that was literally all I could afford. I'd walk past the campus bookstore, staring at textbooks that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, knowing I'd have to borrow them from classmates who barely knew my name or hunt for older editions online. The exhaustion was constant and bone deep. Working, studying, trying to keep my head above water while watching my classmates stress about things that felt like luxuries to me. Spring break trips to Cancun, new laptops, eating out whenever they wanted, these were foreign concepts in my world. But there was one person who saved me during those dark years, and her name was Mary. She was my dad's mother, my grandmother who lived in another state, and she was everything my parents weren't. Grandma Mary had made smart investments when she was younger and lived comfortably in a beautiful house with a reliable car and enough money to help family when they needed it. She had severe hearing problems, though, so phone conversations were impossible. We communicated through text messages instead, and those messages became my lifeline. Every few months during college, I'd get a text from her that would make me cry with relief. "Sending you some help, dear. Focus on your studies." Then $1,000 or $2,000 would magically appear in my account, and suddenly I could eat real food for a while. I could buy the textbooks I needed instead of trying to share them with classmates who had their own priorities. I'd send her long, grateful messages. "Grandma, you saved my life again. I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you so much." She'd text back these incredibly sweet messages about how proud she was of me and how education was the most important investment a person could make. Because of Grandma Mary's help, I only needed one job instead of the 2 or 3 that some of my classmates were juggling. I could actually attend my classes instead of working every single waking hour. Without her support, I never would have graduated. She was literally the difference between success and dropping out, between hope and complete despair. Now, 7 years later, I was still grinding away at my job, still saving every penny I could get my hands on. I wanted my own place so desperately it was almost painful, not rented, but actually mine. Something permanent, something that couldn't be taken away by a landlord's whim or a rent increase I couldn't afford. I denied myself everything to make that dream happen. No fancy dinners at restaurants, no new clothes unless I absolutely needed them, no vacations or weekend trips. Every single dollar went straight into my savings account, building toward a dream that felt both impossible and absolutely necessary. My family barely talked to me anymore. Mom and Dad called maybe once a month, usually to complain about something or ask how work was going in that polite but distant way that made it clear they were checking a box, not actually caring about the answer. Jessica texted occasionally, but mostly to show off whatever new thing our parents had bought her. I'd see her social media posts, designer bags, expensive restaurant meals, weekend trips to beach resorts, and wonder what it would feel like to live that carelessly. I felt guilty about not staying in touch with Grandma Mary more than I did. She was getting older, her health wasn't great, and I knew she deserved better than the occasional text message. But I was working 10-hour days, coming home exhausted, and spending weekends catching up on everything I couldn't do during the week. The guilt ate at me, but I couldn't figure out how to fit anything else into my already overwhelming schedule. So when my 30th birthday was approaching, I decided to do something different. I texted Grandma Mary and invited her to my apartment for a small celebration. I was genuinely excited about the idea, finally seeing her again after all these years, sharing a meal in my little space, showing her how her support had helped me build something that resembled a real life. But she texted back with disappointing news. Health problems would prevent her from traveling. She was sorry, but she'd already given my birthday gift to my parents, and they would bring it to me at the party. I understood completely, her health had to come first, but the disappointment stung. Another family gathering where I'd be the afterthought, the obligation, the one who got whatever leftover attention remained after everyone else had been taken care of. The day of my party arrived, and I'd invited a few friends from work, Nicole, Andrew, and Grace. Nothing fancy, just pizza and cake in my tiny living room. My parents and Jessica showed up last, naturally, and immediately started their usual routine. "This place is so small," Rebecca, Mom said, looking around like she was smelling something unpleasant. "The lighting is terrible in here," Dad added, squinting at my overhead fixture like it had personally offended him. Jessica just rolled her eyes and flopped on my couch without even saying hello. They handed me their gifts with all the enthusiasm of people checking items off a to-do list. Some cheap perfume from Mom that I'd never wear, a gift card to a restaurant I'd never go to from Dad, and a book I'd never read from Jessica. I could tell they'd grabbed these things at the last minute, probably on their way over. "Oh, and here's your grandmother's gift," Mom said, pulling out a beautiful crystal vase from a bag. "She wanted you to have this." I took the vase, feeling its weight in my hands. It was genuinely beautiful, heavy, expensive-looking crystal that caught the light perfectly. "Thanks," I said, wondering why Grandma Mary had chosen something so elegant and impractical for my tiny apartment. They stayed for exactly 30 minutes. I actually timed it. Jessica spent most of the time scrolling through her phone, Mom complained about traffic, and Dad kept checking his watch like he had somewhere important to be. "Well, we should get going," Mom announced suddenly. "We have things to do." "Yeah, busy day," Dad agreed, already reaching for his jacket. And just like that, they were gone. My friends stayed until late, and we actually had a good time, but I couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment. This was my family. This was what I got, 30 minutes of obligation disguised as celebration. After everyone left and I'd cleaned up, I sat on my couch holding the vase. It really was beautiful, and I found myself wondering about Grandma Mary's thought process in choosing it. I took out my phone and sent her a simple text, "Thank you for the beautiful vase. I love it." A month passed, and I fell back into my usual routine. Work, save money, repeat. I was at my desk on a Tuesday afternoon, going through quarterly reports and trying not to think about how much I hated my job, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my cousin Evelyn, and I hadn't heard from her in months. "Hey Evelyn, what's up?" I answered, expecting some casual family gossip. "Rebecca, I had to call you about this." "I'm honestly shocked," she said, her voice carrying an urgency that made me stop typing and pay attention. "Shocked about what?" "About Jessica buying a house. I mean, at her age. How did she even afford it?" I stared at my computer screen, feeling like the world had just shifted slightly off its axis. "Evelyn, I have no idea what you're talking about." "What house?" "Jessica's new house." "Don't tell me you don't know about it." The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. My stomach dropped as I realized something significant had happened in my family, and once again, I was the last to know. "Evelyn, I swear to you, I have no idea what you're talking about." "What house?" Her voice got softer, almost gentle. "Oh my God, Rebecca. You really don't know, do you? Jessica had a housewarming party 2 days ago. It was huge, like 50 people there. The house is beautiful. Not massive, but really nice. Everyone was asking where you were. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I wasn't invited. That's what I figured when I didn't see you there. But your parents told everyone you don't like noisy parties, that you're too introverted for that kind of thing. But Rebecca, that's not even the worst part. I heard your mom talking to my mom later. She was whispering that you were jealous of Jessica because she bought a house so young. She said you were bitter about it. The anger hit me like a physical force. Jealous. Bitter. I didn't even know about the house. How could I be jealous of something I didn't know existed? Evelyn, I swear to you, I had no idea Jessica bought a house. Nobody told me anything. Jesus, Rebecca. That's so messed up. After I hung up, I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what I just learned. My 25-year-old sister, who'd recently graduated and worked part-time at a coffee shop, had somehow bought a house. Where did she get that kind of money? How was that even possible? The next morning, I called Jessica directly. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and casual like nothing had happened. "Jessica, I heard you bought a house. Why didn't you invite me to the housewarming party?" She actually laughed. "Come on, Rebecca. You know you don't like parties." "That's not true, and you know it." "I would have come if you'd invited me." "Whatever. It's not that big a deal." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where did you get the money to buy a house, Jessica?" The line went quiet for several seconds. When she spoke again, her voice had changed completely, cold and sharp. "Mom and Dad gave it to me. And it's none of your business anyway. I have to go." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me holding the phone and staring at the wall. Mom and Dad gave it to her. The same parents who'd refused to help me with college, who'd given me an independent speech at 18, had apparently handed Jessica enough money to buy a house. The next 3 months were absolute torture. Jessica kept posting photos of her house on social media with captions like, "So grateful to my amazing parents for making this possible." Every single post felt like a deliberate slap in the face. I'd stare at the pictures of her beautiful kitchen, her spacious living room, her perfect little garden, and think about my college years. The instant ramen and crackers dinners, the broken heater, the nights I'd cried from exhaustion and stress while my parents were apparently saving money to buy Jessica a house. Then Mom and Dad's 35th wedding anniversary approached. I actually wanted to go to this one, despite everything that had happened. I even bought them a nice present, an expensive picture frame with their wedding photo in it. It cost me almost $200, but I thought it would be meaningful, something that showed I still cared about our family despite the growing distance. I saw the announcement on Mom's Facebook page about the upcoming anniversary party, complete with the date and venue, some fancy restaurant downtown. Strangely, they never called me directly or sent an invitation, but I figured they were just busy with planning. 3 days before the anniversary, I got a text from Grandma Mary that made my heart skip, feeling better these days. Looking forward to celebrating Ben and Carol's anniversary. Will be wonderful to see you in person again, dear. I know you've been so busy with work we haven't had a chance to visit. I was so excited. Finally, a chance to see Grandma Mary again and celebrate something as a family. Maybe this could be a turning point, a chance to reconnect and move past whatever weird dynamics had been building. But the next day, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Hi, Mom. I'm looking forward to the anniversary party. I already bought you and Dad a gift." Rebecca, her voice sounded strained, uncomfortable. "We need to talk about Saturday. We've decided we don't want you to come." I almost dropped the phone. "What do you mean you don't want me to come? We had to reduce the number of seats. You don't really need to be there. You can come to our house some other time and congratulate us." "But why don't you want me?" She'd already hung up. I sat there holding my phone, completely shocked. In the past, I would have been hurt and just stayed home, accepting this as another example of how little I mattered to them. But this time was different. Grandma Mary was going to be there. I hadn't seen her in years, and she was expecting me. I wasn't going to let my parents keep me from seeing the one person in my family who actually cared about me. The next day, I sent their anniversary gift by courier with a note hoping they'd have a wonderful celebration. Then on Saturday, I put on my best dress and drove to the restaurant. When I walked into the dining room, I saw about 40 people sitting at elegantly set tables. Grandma Mary was already there, sitting in a place of honor near the front. She looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile, but she was wearing a beautiful blue dress and her hair was styled perfectly. She looked dignified and graceful, exactly as I remembered her. The moment my parents saw me, panic flashed across their faces. Mom rushed over, her voice urgent, and whispered, "Rebecca, what are you doing here? I told you not to come. Please just leave. This is not the time or place." Dad appeared behind her, his face flushed. "Please, Rebecca. This is not the time or place for whatever this is." But then Grandma Mary's voice cut through the restaurant like a bell. Because of her hearing problems, she spoke really loudly, and her words carried across the entire room. "Rebecca! Oh, my beautiful granddaughter. I'm so happy to see you." Every head in the restaurant turned to look at us. Mom and Dad froze, their faces pale. "Ben, Carol, bring Rebecca over here to sit next to me right now. I haven't seen this girl in far too long." With 40 pairs of eyes watching and forced smiles plastered on their faces, my parents had no choice. They walked me over to Grandma Mary's table, making Jessica move across the table so I could sit next to my grandmother. "There's my girl," Grandma Mary said, squeezing my hand with surprising strength. "Now this is a proper family celebration." The dinner began, and everyone tried to act normal, but I could feel the tension radiating from my parents' table like heat from a fire. They kept shooting nervous glances at Grandma Mary and me. Jessica was glaring at me from across the table like I'd ruined her entire evening just by existing. The guests made lovely toasts to my parents' long marriage. Uncle Henry talked about how generous and caring they'd always been. Aunt Audrey mentioned what wonderful parents they were. I sat there listening to all these compliments about my parents and wondered if these people were talking about the same Carol and Ben I knew. Grandma Mary squeezed my hand every few minutes. "I'm so glad you're here, dear," she kept saying. "It's been too long." I was genuinely enjoying being next to her, finally getting to see her in person after all these years. She looked frighlier than I remembered, but her eyes were still sharp and bright. She was wearing a beautiful diamond necklace I'd never seen before, and her presence felt like a protective shield around me. About halfway through dinner, after the main course had been served, Grandma Mary turned to me. Her voice, as always, was loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Rebecca, how do you like living in the house I gave you for your 30th birthday?" The entire restaurant went silent. I mean completely, utterly silent. Everyone stopped eating and stared at us. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. I leaned closer to her ear and said as clearly as I could, "Grandma, I don't know about any house. Mom and Dad gave me a beautiful vase from you for my birthday." Grandma Mary's face changed completely. Confusion flickered across her features, then understanding, then a kind of cold fury I'd never seen before. "A vase? What vase?" At that exact moment, I heard the distinct sound of two forks hitting plates simultaneously. I looked over and saw my parents had both dropped their silverware. Their faces were white as sheets, and Dad's hands were actually shaking. All the guests were looking back and forth between Grandma Mary and my parents, trying to figure out what was happening. The silence was so thick you could hear people breathing. Grandma Mary slowly turned to face my parents. Her voice got even louder, if that was possible. "Ben. Carol. I want you to explain to me right now where the money went that I gave you to buy Rebecca a house." The silence in the restaurant was deafening. 40 people holding their breath, waiting for an answer that everyone somehow knew was going to change everything. "Mom, maybe we should discuss this privately," Dad said, his voice cracking with strain. "No. I want to know now. I gave you money to buy Rebecca a house 3 months ago. I helped you with the realtor. I signed all the papers to put the house in Rebecca's name. And I gave you the keys to give to her on her birthday. Where is that house?" Dad stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His whole body was trembling like a leaf in a windstorm. Mom was crying quietly into her napkin, her makeup running down her cheeks. "Mom, we gave the house to Jessica instead." The gasps from the guests were audible. Someone's wine glass clinked as they set it down too hard on the table. I heard a woman whisper, "Oh my God," somewhere behind me. "What?" Grandma Mary's voice was so loud I thought the windows might shatter. Jessica suddenly jumped up from her chair, her face flushed with anger and panic. "That house is mine. Mom and Dad gave it to me. I'm not giving it to anyone." "Jessica, sit down," Grandma Mary commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd raised children and wouldn't be questioned. "That house was bought for Rebecca with my money." "I don't care." Jessica was standing by the table now, crying and screaming. "It's my house now. I've been living there for months. You can't just take it away from me." Grandma Mary stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and dignified despite her age. She motioned to my parents with a gesture that somehow conveyed both authority and deep disappointment. "Ben. Carol. Come here right now." My parents looked at each other with the desperate expression of people who knew they were about to face consequences they couldn't escape. They reluctantly walked over to where Grandma Mary was standing. She pressed her hearing aid and leaned in close to them. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, which was unusual for her. I couldn't hear what she was saying, and neither could anyone else in the restaurant, but I could see my parents' faces getting paler and paler with each word. Dad started nodding frantically, like he was agreeing to something he didn't want to agree to. Mom put her hand over her mouth like she was going to be sick. After about 2 minutes of this quiet but obviously intense conversation, my parents walked back to their table. They looked like they'd seen a ghost. Dad's hands were still shaking as he stood up and addressed the room in a voice that cracked with strain. "Everyone, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you celebrating with us, but we need to end the party now. It's time for everyone to go home." The guests started gathering their things, whispering to each other about what they'd just witnessed. I heard fragments of conversations as people walked past our table. "Did you hear what she said about a house? That poor girl. They gave her house to the sister? What kind of parents do that?" I turned to Grandma Mary, who was gathering her purse with movements that seemed both tired and determined. "Would you like to come stay at my apartment tonight?" "Yes, dear. I don't want to stay with them after what they've done." That evening, Grandma Mary and I sat in my small living room and had the longest, most honest conversation we'd ever had. She told me things that made my blood run cold. "I gave them $60,000 to buy you a house 3 months ago," she said, her voice heavy with pain. "I went through all the paperwork, worked with the realtor, made sure everything was in your name. I even gave them the keys to give to you on your birthday. But they gave me a vase instead," I said, and we both started laughing at the absurdity of it all. "Your father has been using my personal bank account for years," she continued. "Whenever they needed money for Jessica's things, for their own expenses, they would just take it. I trusted them because Ben is my son." The next morning, my parents showed up at my door with a set of keys. Dad couldn't even look at me as he handed them over. "These are for you," he said quietly. "The house keys." I took them without saying anything. What was there to say? A week later, I drove to my house, my actual house, the house that was supposed to be mine all along. It was small but beautiful, with a little front yard and flower boxes under the windows. When I walked inside, I could see that my parents had clearly chosen and decorated it with Jessica in mind, not me. The kitchen had pink accents everywhere. The bedroom was painted lavender, Jessica's favorite color. But it was mine now, and I was going to make it feel like home. 6 months have passed since that terrible anniversary dinner. I haven't spoken to my parents or Jessica since, and I don't miss the drama, the favoritism, or the constant feeling that I wasn't good enough. My house is really starting to feel like home now. I painted over the pink and lavender with colors I actually like. I planted a small vegetable garden in the backyard where I can watch things grow and thrive under my care. Most importantly, I've been visiting Grandma Mary regularly. Every other weekend, I drive to her state and spend time with her. We cook together, watch old movies, and talk about everything. "You're the granddaughter I always hoped you'd be," she told me last month. "Smart, independent, and honest. Your parents raised Jessica to be entitled and spoiled, but somehow you turned out different. For the first time in my adult life, I'm truly happy. I have my own home, financial security, and a relationship with the one family member who actually loves me. It took 30 years and a catastrophic family dinner, but I finally got what I deserved." Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead us to exactly where we need to be. Sometimes losing the family you thought you had helps you find the family you actually deserve. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about family secrets, second chances, and finding your worth when the people closest to you fail you. Sometimes the loudest truth comes from the quietest voice.